It's a lot more than I thought.
Gracious.
Good, good. The cross was bought for me by my father about 25 years ago from a friend of his who was an auctioneer and valuer, and it was seen by an antique expert who visited a club that I belonged to, and he told me that the stones in it were rock crystal, and that is the only information that I've ever had about it.
Well, it's quite a rare thing. Obviously a very nice ecclesiastical cross set with what looks like dark grey stones. Turn it over. And a finely chased back and a finely chased top and this little suspension loop.
I wondered if it was maybe Spanish or Italian.
Well,
or
that's
the
really
Inquisition.
what I think it is. I think it's actually a Spanish cross, but the grey stones, though, they are not rock crystal. They're flat table-cut diamonds.
They certainly don't look like diamonds.
They don't look like diamonds, but when they've got this very flat cut, and when I say table cut, you get a flat facet, and then you get 4 facets down the side. If they put a closed-back setting, as they've done here, you can't see the light going through the stones. It's not reflected back, and they appear dark charcoal grey. And that is very typical for Spanish stones for that particular period.
Does the diamond fill the whole of that area, or is it just sort of set on the top of it?
Well, I think it's countersunk in. If you were to remove the diamond from the cone, you'd find a cavity behind.
Right.
If you like, the collet, the cup, forms a kind of grip that holds the stone in. This one is the biggest stone. In fact, I think if you were to take out the diamond and weigh it, it's quite a heavy diamond because it's a thick, chunky, almost like a diamond cube. And in fact, in their native form, when you find diamonds, they're usually found in the form of cubes.
I didn't know that.
So there it is, Spanish, 1680, 1690. We're talking about perhaps 300 years. With things like crosses, things like ecclesiastical pieces, they don't have a great appeal to the whole world because, unfortunately, religious things don't. So I'm going to be a little cautious. I'm not going to go too high on my price, but, you know, looking at the period and looking at the stones, I think we're looking at around about for selling £1,000.
Gee. It cost £75 when it was bought originally.
A very good investment, I would say.
Yes.
So on this quite plain back plate, it's got an inscription. Has that got any significance then?
Yes, the brooch was given by my grandfather on their 40th wedding anniversary to my grandmother.
In 1936. Because it's very much a piece of that time, isn't it? You know, you get a sense of a geometric clip that would have been worn on a lapel.
Yes.
And it would have looked absolutely stunning, wouldn't it, really, at that time that people wore a pair of clips. This is just a singleton, this is just a single clip. But it's very, very typical for the mid-30s. So let's have a look at it. It's structured and it's mounted up in platinum and set centrally with a cushion-shaped ruby. Around the ruby is almost like a flame cluster of lovely diamonds, lovely white diamonds. And then they form a kind of a lapel here, where you've got a mixture of different cuts. And then you've got this telltale gap in the centre, which is actually quite typical. But really the interesting thing is to not look at the front or the back, but to look inside. You turn it on this very strong clip.
It is strong,
very strong
I don't mind wearing it, yeah.
And then inside here, in this sort of groove section, which has a kind of a minaret feel to it, you know? Inside there, it's got the inscription Cartier, London. And then it's got an individual number, and that's another thing about the sheer quality of Cartier's workmanship, is that on all their pieces they would put a little number on.
Oh, right.
And these days you can still go back to Cartier and say, I just wanted to check up on this actual piece, and they'll go back through their records and they would advise, yes, that was that piece. They've got a drawing of it. The quality control is fantastic. But this is an absolute beauty, and it's so wearable nowadays. And that's the great thing about Cartier's pieces. They are so wearable. You could really, really wear this. It's a wonderful piece. So then we have to discuss the question of value for it. Well, I think for a genuine Cartier clip like this, 1930s design, I think we're probably looking at auction £3,000 to £4,000 for it. So it's a mighty powerful piece packed into a very small volume there, but it's £3,000 to £4,000, and that's just auction. Bear in mind, for insurance purposes these days, you'd have to reckon at least £7,500 to £8,000 for it.
Right.
You know, a lot of people consider these sort of things aren't very lucky. The stones themselves are from Australia. And they are, of course, opal beads with a matching pendant and a pair of beads for the studs. Why do people not think that they're very lucky? Well, because they've got this habit of drying out and cracking. They fall apart. If they've got cracks in them, unfortunately, it brings the value right down.
Right.
These, though, I'm pleased to say, are in extremely good condition, and although they're quite milky, there are no hairline cracks. You've got this sort of lovely high polish, and then you've got this depth of colour here, where you've got tinges of blue and green and red on a milky background. Were they given to you, or did you buy them?
No, they were given to me by my grandmother when I was about 15, and she said, oh, I could have these if I had my ears pierced. I didn't have ears pierced at the time. So ever since then I've worn pierced earrings, and I've worn those a couple of times, but otherwise I keep them in the bank.
I mean, I've mentioned that they are nicely matched beads. They're not the very best colour. I think that they were probably made in around about 1925, and this was the time when all bead necklaces were most popular.
Yeah.
It's on a lovely little panel clasp, lovely diamonds there. There's a centre stone there. This is the largest stone in a lattice work frame of smaller diamonds. Now, they're with a pair of matching studs for the ears, and all these are drilled beads that have had a diamond stuck in the end. The Australian, that's the big mines. Coober Pedy is the mine that these are found in. They're dug out in intense heat, in conditions which are absolutely appalling.
Underground, aren't they?
Underground, that's right. In fact, all the people who dig these things out live beneath the ground in sort of cells. It's an extraordinary existence just to find these wonderful things.
Right.
You've also got an opal pendant, and I'm interested in this one because, as you can see, it's an utterly different stone.
Much more fire in that one.
Much more fire, much more of this so-called pin fire, where you've got all sorts of flecks. Predominantly, you've got this sort of fiery colour, but you've also got red and green too.
Yeah.
So actually, if that opal happened to be the same as in these, this would be a very, very valuable necklace. But I think actually that this is the best quality stone, and it's in a surround of rubies, and the frame of the pendant was made in around about 1900, 1910 possibly. So down to values, well, I would think for insurance around about £7,500. You've got the opal beads for the ears too.
Right.
These, for insurance purposes, probably about £500, £600. They'd sell at auction for perhaps 200, 250. And then the opal pendant, well, little flat, but it is the best colour. And that pendant probably at auction around £800 to £1,000, and insure that one for £2,500.
Wow. Say, what a marvellous brooch. My goodness me. Is it a family one?
Yes, it came from my great-grandmother to my mum, to my nana, then my mum, and then it's passed down.
When do you think it was made?
I haven't got a clue.
Come on, have a go.
Great-grandmother, so 18-something.
No, absolutely not 18 at all. This is actually a 20th century brooch, so maybe the story's got a little bit sort of embroidered. And the point about it is that it's a 20th century design. It's a very Art Deco design, a very Odeon style object. And if one looks at it quite carefully, it reminds you of a visit to one of those enormous cinemas with a decoration around the ceiling. What's even more special about it is that the diamonds used in its manufacture are modern cut. And what's frowned upon when you find a jewel like this is to find older cut diamonds that have been used for jewellery in the past included in such an object. And this is absolutely not the case. These long diamonds here we call baguette diamonds, and they're used to great effect to a rather geometrical design that actually in this instance owes its origins a bit to Mexican design. And here in the middle we've got rather a substantial, brilliant cut diamond.
So it is a diamond in...
Oh, it's a diamond.
I didn't think it,
You didn't think it was a diamond? No, no, goodness, no, it's quite a good thing. Curiously enough, with diamonds, if you want to make an immediate judgment as to whether a diamond is a diamond, it's the imperfections in it that tell you instantly that it is. Deep in the diamond, almost imperceptible without a very strong lens, a black deposit, which is a piece of carbon that's not crystallized. Diamonds are simply crystallized carbon. It's an element expressing itself in this particular way because of intense heat and pressure many millions of years ago. There are some problems with it that I noticed as I turned it over, that it's out of true. Had that damage been more critical, then we would have been in serious trouble, but we're not really. And it needs cleaning and a little bit of adjustment. And you know the direction to which this is all leading, don't you? That this is a really substantially good, valuable object. If there's a chance of putting a name to it, a maker, then that would add to it even more. But you have to brace yourself, strap yourself into the seat, because we've got a really, really good one here. And if you went into a West End shop to buy such an object again, I think it's possible that they would ask you £12,000 for it.
Good God. Dear me, I didn't think it was that bad. We didn't think these were diamonds.
No, well, they are diamonds. They're all diamonds, and you've got a very valuable brooch.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for bringing
Thank
it.
you very much for doing it.
Thank you. Now, tell me, did you make this jewellery roll?
No, I didn't.
Who did?
I don't know. It's a present from somebody.
From somebody. Let's see what's got inside. Perhaps it's got presents from somebody inside. Let's just see. Ooh. Glint of all kinds. Oh, a pretty ring there. Black enamel and diamonds. Black enamel would be a clue to most people interested in antique jewellery. This is probably a memorial jewel, and as I turn it in the light, I can see perfectly well it's engraved on the back with a dedication inscription. It says, to Jane Redmond Smith. Jane Redmond Smith died the 15th of April, 1805, aged 58 years. We actually know that Jane Redmond Smith was a married lady. In memorial jewellery, when the enamel is black, it's for married people, and when it's in white, it's for those that are unmarried. So we know that she is a married lady. The diamonds are a reminder, diamonds are forever. It's forever in the recipient's thought. Is she part of your family? Do you know about her?
I don't know anything about her at all. As she's with the other two pieces of jewellery, I assume that she's part of my family, yes, because they're all inherited pieces of jewellery. But more than that, no, I don't.
Long time ago. It might be fun to see if you could backpedal and find out who she is, because this is probably really the only relic of her now that we can know about. I'm thrilled with that. It's a lovely one. Let's see what else you've got in here. Where did all these wonderful things come from?
They've been passed down along the female line for the last four generations we know, but I think it's probably at least 5 generations.
Goodness. Under the light, this is returning a lot of light, and you can see it's a bumblebee with a baroque-shaped body.
Yes, and I wondered whether it would the pearl have thought of the design for the rest of it, or would the pearl just have been fitted in with the design? I mean, it's such an unusual piece.
Well, you're right, and what is clever about this diamond brooch in the form of a bee with a pearl body and ruby eyes is that it's a little message of love, actually, because it's a rebus, it's a sort of crossword. It's be sure of my love. It's fun, isn't it? And the diamonds are forever, the rubies are for passionate love, and the pearl is to do with Venus. So it's actually a little Valentine's card, but it needs a bit of unscrambling, but it's a very easy one to wear, and you should try and do it for everybody else's sake.
Yes.
You put that one down for a minute, and there's another absolutely beautiful diamond jewel. This one is absolutely at the turn of the century. You can see the diamond work is crisper and it returns more fire. And you can see the focus of the brooch is a very good natural pearl. I mean, one with the most unusual rainbow sheen to it. And it's trailed with laurel wreaths and hung with yet another pearl. And the date of this one, it's mounted in gold and platinum, is about 1900. So there's quite a span of ancestral jewellery here, isn't there? I mean, what a fantastic group to come out of one bag. It's certainly early 19th century, mid-19th century, turn of the century. Right. And what we've got to say a lot about, really, is what kind of value you'd attributed to them.
They were valued about 17 or 18 years ago, so I had an idea then, but that was one of the reasons that I wanted to bring that. I've really got no idea of what in the present
No memory
day.
at all of that. You said...
I'm not sure about the ring at all. I think it was just those two.
I think that's become much more the focus of collectors today. So I think you'd have to reckon that alone is something like £1,200 to £1,500 to a collector. Really, really lovely one. And then moving on to this one, which is, I have to say, in really very, very good condition. You could expect to get £6,000 for that today. And then, when you're...
Any contributions for the insurance?
Well, quite, I know. This one, I think you've got to reckon that another 6,000 or 7,000. So it really was rather a good visit. Very good visit from my point of view.
Well, thank you very much. You've given me such a lot of information as well.
The stuff that dreams are made on in the Antiques Roadshow. Thanks very much.
Oh, well, thank you.
This piece of jewellery came from my wife's grandfather, who was at Christchurch in the, I suppose, the late 1870s. And when he took his degree and went down, he became tutor to the Khedive of Egypt, to his son. And when he ceased to be tutor to the son of the Khedive, he was presented with this item. And to the best of our knowledge and belief, it's been in the bank ever since.
Well, I think it's a wonderful place to keep it because it's in absolutely pristine condition. I mean, that's the first thing to say about it. And then possibly the second thing to say is that it's a conspicuously valuable-looking object. I mean, it's made of gold, it's decorated with rose pompadour enamel, set with diamonds. It's fantastically well made. This woven gold work is called loop-in-loop chain work. It's like a gold textile. It's quite a versatile object because it's not only a watch for a man to hang across his waistcoat, but also convertible and can be worn beneath this brooch like this for a lady to wear. It's unlikely to be of Egyptian craftsmanship, actually. I'm just going to try to open the back here.
I believe it once it was French.
Well, I think that's a very, very good guess, actually, and I've firmly believe, actually, that it's made in Geneva, because the Eastern potentates really put Geneva watchmaking and Geneva enamelling on the map. Yeah. And they were huge patrons of that kind of work, and they were rather fascinated by the meticulous craftsmanship that was possible at that time. This borders of black enamel here are particularly part of the French repertoire, and indeed the Swiss too. It rather disarmingly says that it's made, or at least sold in Cairo, yes. But I'm absolutely sure that it wasn't made there. It's just too sophisticated, too wonderful a thing in a way. It's very much an Oriental taste. It's rather like sort of rose water, yes. Laid onto the surface of the gold, and has a sort of whiff of the Orient, which is very exciting in a way, I must say. Have you got it insured at all? Probably not necessarily in the bank.
Well, we do, I think, have it insured, but it's in the bank, and there it stays.
Yes. I think its value has absolutely nothing to do with the intrinsic value of the diamonds, which are rose diamonds. Yeah. And I think it's a collector's piece, and I think that exactly the same public that liked it in the 19th century, the Orientals would love it again. Yeah. And for that reason, I think in recent years it's probably escalated in value quite dramatically. And my guess is that you ought to insure it for about £15,000.
Oh, gracious. Yeah.
Good thing. Thank you very much for showing it to us.
Thank you very much for telling me. Most interesting.
Well, I think it's very rare to find such a strong clue to the authorship of a collection of jewellery of this sort. H. Wilson, Platt, Kent.
Yes.
Tell me, how do you come by these marvellous things?
Well, these two were presents, wedding presents for my mother and father in Tehran in 1912. And of course, my father was Henry Wilson's brother.
The first thing we've got to say about Henry Wilson is that he's the towering genius of the arts and crafts movement in more ways than to simply jewellery.
Yes.
I think we ought to just look at some of the sources of inspiration for these, because it's very bright colouring, very pre-Raphaelite colouring, something in a way that's rather at odds with English taste, because it's in the English medieval taste, which is very bright, vibrant colours. Here we have a brooch in the form of a Tudor rose, but also a rose for love. Some carved mother of pearl in what I think are later mounts. Yes. These are very beautiful.
Yes, they are later mounts. Yes, they're not Henry Wilson mounts.
No, they're very beautiful scenes and possibly emblematic of the seasons. There's a crowned head here, which may be the thorniness of winter. I think he was. The designs that I've seen shows that he's very interested in the transition of the seasons, and so
much so. He was a great philosopher, wasn't he?
Absolutely. So there we are, and a devotional jewel, Mary and the Christ Child, got a lot to do with his architectural work. The important thing about this one, and the reason that I've left it until last, is that it's got a rather noble origin, the design. It relates to a jewel in the form of a hat badge that was designed by Albrecht Dürer, and it's still the design exists in Germany, and he must have known about it from engravings. And he's completely obsessed with the idea of the stag and Diana and the moon, and this occurs over and over again, and they are her emblems. She is our goddess of the hunt, and he's borrowed this from Albrecht Dürer, who was not only a painter but also a goldsmith too. So he understood that, and it's rather a neat evolving of the style. I think it's a devastating group. I've seldom seen anything more exciting brought to me. It's one that I feel intensely interested in, and of course, the idea of valuing it is almost a heresy, and I think what we'll just do is run through it very quickly. I think, for instance, these have got to be worth £750 of anybody's money. I mean, one would be thrilled to find them. Say, £600 for such an object like this. £2,000 for this and more.
Yes.
Maybe £3,000. £5,000 for this one. It's terrible, isn't it? I can hardly get through, so I think poor old Wilson's ghost will never, ever forgive me. And £8,000 to £10,000 for this one.
Goodness me. I
Yeah.
had no idea. I'm not sure I wanted to know.
No, I know you didn't. And that's because you have Henry Wilson's blood in your veins.
Now, I think it's true to say that this sort of little ring with a little stone would pass a lot of people by. What do you know about it?
Only that it belongs to my mother-in-law, that's all, and she came by her mother-in-law, which was my late husband's grandmother.
So we're looking at what, around about 1900, that type of period?
Oh, it must be, I should think, yeah.
Because in fact what it is, it's a typical late Victorian type of setting. You've got a gold ring which is gypsy set with a stone. Plain gold, broad trumpet front to it, typically the sort of thing that you would see in around about the late Victorian period. Now the blue stone is in fact a diamond, and that makes it very special indeed. It's a blue diamond. To see a blue diamond of this kind of colour is extremely rare, and in fact perhaps one sees one per year or 2 years. They are that rare. I think a lot of people assume that they come in white, but they also come in lots of fancy colours as well, of which green and blue and pink are probably the rarest colour to find. Because it's a Victorian stone, it means that all the weight of the stone is at the back of the stone. So in fact the weight of the diamond probably weighs about 0.4 of 1. So it's approaching half a carat in size. So what are we going to do with it? How do we assess the price of something like this? Because of course it is a specimen stone. There are so many variables that would apply to something like this. What we would have to do is to take the stone out and send it across to the United States for certification. Because unfortunately it's only in the United States that fancy diamonds like this get a certificate that purchasers have sufficient confidence in. Just to give you a suggestion of exactly how many levels of blue there are: fancy grey blue, fancy intense green blue, fancy blue, fancy greyish blue, fancy grey blue, fancy light greyish blue. All these are different subtle nuances on blue. Now, I think that's a smashing colour. I think that's a beautiful depth of colour, and I personally haven't seen an old Victorian stone with that depth of colour. So, looking at a kind of a precedent that's been set, a diamond that was a round, brilliant cut, that is a more modern cut stone, that weighed 1/3 of a carat, 0.32, remembering I'm assessing this at around about 0.4 to 0.45, was sent to the United States for certification. It was subsequently put into a sale in New York, and in 1996 it made, believe it or not, US 42,000.
Good God.
That's 132,000 a carat. Now, it would be very dangerous indeed to sit here and say that that diamond is going to be worth that kind of money. You're going to say to me, well, all right, what is it worth potentially? All I can say is that it ought to be worth, say, between £10,000 and £25,000. Is that a shock?
It's a lot more than I thought, yeah.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah,
I'm sure it is. It's the most extraordinary find, and, you know, it's thrilling. One doesn't see these things, so to see one brought in on a roadshow, well, it's fantastic. Very exciting.